I found my brother slipping an envelope of cash into my fiancée's hand the night before our wedding. And the way she froze when she saw me watching told me this wasn't a kind gesture. It was a secret, a payoff, something that didn't belong in the air between two people about to become family. And in that split second, I knew. The story I thought I was living wasn't the full story. I stood just inside the doorway of the banquet hall side corridor, still in my rehearsal dinner jacket, watching as Claire, the woman I was going to marry in less than 12 hours, took that envelope with trembling fingers. My brother, Tom, leaned in and whispered something I couldn't hear. She nodded once, eyes wide. He turned to leave, and that's when he saw me. His expression didn't crack. Tom was always good under pressure. Too good. He walked right past me, clapped a hand on my shoulder like we'd just finished a beer together, and said, "See you tomorrow, little brother." Then he kept walking, out the back door and into the night. Claire was still standing there when I turned to look at her, clutching that envelope like it might disappear if she held on tight enough. "What was that?" I asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, looked down at the envelope. "Nothing," she said, almost a whisper. "Just Tom being Tom." I nodded slowly, walked toward her. I didn't raise my voice, didn't demand, just asked again, "What's in the envelope?" Her hand twitched like she might try to hide it behind her back, but she didn't. Instead, she handed it to me. I opened it, slowly, deliberately, and saw a stack of $100 bills. Crisp, clean, no note, no explanation. My heart started beating somewhere near my throat. "Why would Tom give you cash the night before our wedding?" I asked. Claire swallowed. Her mascara was still perfect, but her composure was cracking around the edges. "He said it was for old times' sake," she said finally. "That's all. Just old times." That should have been the moment I yelled. Demanded answers. Accused her of something. Instead, I just stood there, staring at the money like it might start talking on its own. Tom and I hadn't been close in years. He was 5 years older, the golden boy for most of our childhood. The charmer, the risk-taker, the guy who could sell a lie with a smile and make you thank him for it. Me? I was the cleanup crew. The one who covered for his mistakes, who told Mom it wasn't Tom's fault, who bailed him out when his gambling got him in deep. We hadn't spoken much since our dad's funeral. Some old wound I never quite stitched shut. And now here he was, showing up for the rehearsal dinner like nothing had happened, and slipping cash to my bride behind my back. I walked Claire back to her car in silence. She tried to hold my hand. I let her. When we got there, she turned to me. "Nate, it's not what you think." I didn't say anything, just stared at her, waiting for the story she clearly hadn't rehearsed well enough. After a long pause, she said, "He said he didn't want me walking into tomorrow without being honest with myself." "What does that mean?" She didn't answer. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my porch with the envelope open in front of me, counting the bills over and over like the numbers might change if I checked enough times. 10 grand. $10,000. That wasn't a favor. That was hush money. But hush about what? The worst part wasn't that Claire lied. It was that she looked terrified when I saw her, like she'd been caught trying to smother a fire that had already burned half the house down. I thought I knew everything about her. Turns out, there was a whole chapter missing. And Tom, well, he always knew how to light a match. I didn't call her that night. Didn't text. Didn't ask for answers I wasn't ready to hear. I sat there in the dark with that envelope beside me, the edges starting to curl from how many times I'd run my fingers over it. Like the weight of it might explain something. Like maybe if I stared hard enough, it'd confess. By morning, I decided I couldn't walk down that aisle until I knew the truth. The worst part? I still wanted to. God help me, I did. I wanted to believe there was some reasonable explanation. That it was just Tom being dramatic, or nostalgic, or screwing around the way he always did. I wanted Claire to walk through my door and laugh it off, to say it was a misunderstanding, that I'd jumped to the wrong conclusion. But when she showed up, she didn't laugh. She didn't even knock. She let herself in using the spare key I'd given her last year, back when things still felt solid. Back when trust was something we didn't have to talk about, because it was just there. She stood in the doorway, wearing the same hoodie from the night before, hair pulled back like she hadn't slept either. I didn't move. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, her hands folded neatly like she was bracing for a job interview she didn't want. "You deserve to know," she said. "But I need you to listen all the way through. Please." I nodded once. She took a deep breath. "Before I met you, I had a thing with Tom. The world didn't fall apart, but something inside me did. A slow crack down the middle, like glass under pressure. It was years ago, she said quickly. Before we ever met. Before I even knew you existed. I met him at a fundraiser my company was helping host. He was charming, fast, loud. Exactly the kind of trouble I was still drawn to back then. She wouldn't look at me as she said it. Just kept her eyes on the envelope still sitting between us. It wasn't serious. At least, I didn't think it was. We hooked up for a few months. On and off. I figured it'd fizzle out, and eventually it did. He ghosted, actually. One day he just stopped answering. That was fine with me. I swallowed the bile climbing up my throat. And then, 2 years later, I met you. She looked at me then, like it mattered. And I didn't connect the dots right away. You two don't look much alike. And you never mentioned him. So I didn't know. Not until your mom's birthday dinner. The first time I saw him again. She went pale just remembering it. He acted like we were strangers, she said. Smiled, shook my hand like it was the first time. And I followed his lead. I figured it was ancient history, and maybe you didn't need to know. I didn't want to cause drama. I let that sit. You were with my brother, I said flat. And you didn't think I needed to know. I didn't think we were serious, she said quietly. Back then, and when we did get serious, it felt too late to bring it up. Like digging up a ghost for no reason. But he didn't forget, I said. Not if he's handing you money the night before our wedding. Her silence confirmed it. He showed up at the rehearsal, she said, and asked to talk. Said he wanted to give me a wedding gift. That envelope. I told him no. I said I didn't want it. And then he said something that made my blood run cold. She paused. Said if I didn't take it, you might find out what the money was for anyway. And he'd rather I had it than some cheap tabloid. I blinked. What? He said he told someone, she whispered. A friend? Or a bookie? I don't know. Someone who owes him favors. He said people talk, and he figured the story might get out eventually. So this was his way of what? Softening the blow? I don't even know. But it felt like a threat. I felt like I was watching my own life through frosted glass. Everything recognizable, but off. Distant. He told me I should have come clean, Claire added. That I was marrying you under false pretenses. And maybe he was right. But it never felt like that to me. You are, something different. I looked at her then, really looked. And in that moment, I didn't see the woman I'd proposed to. I saw a version of her I hadn't met yet. One who'd made mistakes. Who'd chosen silence. Who'd let a man like Tom carry part of her story like a loaded gun in his back pocket. You should have told me, I said quietly. I know. Not because of him, I added. Because I deserve to know who I was building my life with. She nodded. I'm not proud of it. I didn't ask if you were. We sat in silence after that. Long, awkward. Real. Finally, I said, do you still want to get married? She didn't answer right away. But when she did, her voice cracked. I want to build a life that doesn't have secrets in it. And I want to build it with you. But only if you can forgive me. I looked at the envelope one last time. Then pushed it toward her. Then start by giving this back to him. I don't want his money in our house. Her eyes welled up. But Claire, I added, this isn't over. And I meant it. Because something about Tom's timing wasn't right. And if I knew anything about my brother, he didn't give out money unless it was hush money. Which meant there was still something I didn't know. And I was about to find out. I couldn't let it go. Even after Claire gave the envelope back, marched over to Tom's hotel room that afternoon and dropped it on the floor like it was toxic. I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd only heard half the truth. Because here's the thing about my brother. He never gave without an angle. And he never gave up unless someone made him. So the question that kept gnawing at me wasn't just why he gave Claire money. It was why now? Why the night before the wedding? Why 10 grand? Why show up after years of silence just to stir a pot we'd all agreed to stop cooking? I didn't call him. I showed up. He was staying at one of those flashy boutique hotels downtown. The kind with concrete ceilings, overpriced cocktails, and staff trained to smile like they're about to hand you a secret. I didn't even knock. Just waited in the lobby until I saw him step off the elevator, sunglasses on indoors like always. Tom never missed an opportunity to perform. Nate, he said, all casual grin. You here to thank me for the wedding gift? I didn't smile. Let's talk. He shrugged, led me to the lounge. Ordered 2 drinks like we were catching up after a decade apart, instead of circling each other with knives behind our backs. I didn't touch mine. He leaned back in his chair, studied me. So, she told you. She told me. I said. Enough. He tilted his head. Enough for what? Enough to know you used to sleep with her. Tom didn't flinch, just swirled his drink and said, "That was a long time ago." "Not long enough," I said. "You knew it would matter to me. You chose to keep it quiet." "I chose," he said, "not to make a mistake worse." "You looked happy." She seemed safe. I thought maybe the best thing I could do, for once, was nothing. "That's not your call." Tom shrugged. "You're right. But I've made a lot of bad calls, Nate. And this time I tried something different. I figured if I told you myself, you'd explode. But if you found out slowly, maybe you'd understand." "You gave her 10 grand. He nodded. "Because I owed her. For a version of myself I never want to be again." I stared at him. "Look, when Claire and I ended, it wasn't clean. She got caught in something that wasn't her fault. A guy I owed thought she was close to me. Started circling. I told him she didn't matter, that she was no one. She found out. Came at me like a storm. Told me if I ever came near her again, she'd bury me. And I believed her." He looked down at his hands like they didn't belong to him. "When I saw her at the rehearsal, I thought she might still be carrying that weight. And I realized I couldn't walk into that room and pretend we didn't have history. I couldn't let her carry that into your marriage. So you gave her money." He nodded. "She didn't want it. Told me to go to hell. But I left it anyway. I thought maybe if she told you, she'd get ahead of it. If she didn't, well, at least I tried." "You think this is what trying looks like?" I said. "Secrecy and side doors and cryptic notes?" He sighed. "I'm not good at clean. I'm not you. I don't know how to say I'm sorry without messing it up." "And what about the note on your car? Stay out?" He blinked, then chuckled bitterly. "That wasn't about you, Nate. That was about him." "Him? Lewis." I frowned. "You said he was dead." Tom went quiet. His jaw clenched. "Then, yeah, I did." I stood up. And for the first time in a long time, I saw my brother not as the villain, but as a mirror. Because the truth was, I hadn't wanted to know who Claire used to be either. I wanted the version she gave me, polished, present, unscarred. But now I knew, and I had to decide if I could live with it. That night, I found Claire in our apartment, sitting at the edge of our bed in one of my old t-shirts, staring at the wall like it had answers. "I talked to Tom," I said. She didn't look up. "He told me about the debt, the threats." Her shoulders tensed. "So now you know." I sat beside her. "Why didn't you tell me?" She was quiet a long time. Then, "Because I didn't want you to see me like that. Weak. Scared. Used." I took her hand. "You're not any of those things," I said. "You're someone who survived a version of my brother I never really saw. And that matters." She looked at me then, raw, bare, not polished. "I'm not perfect," she whispered. I didn't answer right away, because part of me wanted to reach across the table and pull her in, and part of me wanted to walk away. I thought about the version of her I thought I knew, the one who lit candles and laughed too loud at my bad jokes. And the version I was seeing now, tired, scared, honest. "You kept a lot from me," I said finally. She nodded. "I know, and I don't know if I can forget that." "I'm not asking you to," she said. "I'm asking you to see all of me, and decide from there." I sat back, exhaled slow. "If we're going to do this," I said, "it has to start from the truth. All of it. Even when it's ugly. Especially then." She nodded again, this time slower. And in that moment, I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But I didn't walk away either. And sometimes, that's the hardest part, staying long enough to see what's real. That's where love starts. Not in the fairy tale, but in the wreckage, where two people choose to rebuild, brick by broken brick. Still, there was one thing left nagging at me. Tom said the man was dead, but something about his story didn't sit right. And I was about to find out why. The next day, I woke up with a feeling I couldn't shake, like someone had rearranged the furniture in my head while I was sleeping. The air felt off. Too quiet. Like the moment right before thunder breaks. Claire was still asleep beside me, curled toward the wall, her hand just barely brushing mine under the sheets. And that should have been peace. But peace doesn't sit on your chest like a weight. I got up, made coffee, and stared out the kitchen window, thinking about what Tom said, the man he owed money to, the threats, the so-called apology stuffed into an envelope. And the detail that didn't fit, he's dead now. Tom wasn't the type to remember names, but I was. I remembered every favor I ever covered for him. Every time I had to clean up the mess before our parents found out. So I went back to one of those memories, a night 5 years ago, when he showed up at my door with a busted lip and a busted excuse. "I'm in a situation," he'd said. And the guy he owed back then? His name was Lewis Wren. So I did what I probably shouldn't have. I looked him up. There it was, a half-buried news article from 2 years ago. Local man killed in Reno parking lot. Suspected robbery. No suspects named. That lined up with what Tom said. But then I saw the second link, a recent court record. Court filing dismissed and pending civil case. Claire Whitmore v. LW Enterprises. My stomach dropped. Claire never mentioned it. And Tom? If this case was still active after Lewis was supposedly dead, he either didn't know, or he lied. She hadn't just been caught in Tom's trouble, she tried to fight back. Sued a shell company tied to Lewis. Maybe for harassment. Maybe damages. Either way, it meant one thing. Someone knew Lewis was still alive. And if Claire knew, and Tom knew, then what had really died in that Reno parking lot? And suddenly, it wasn't just Tom I couldn't trust. Claire came into the kitchen an hour later. Hair up, still in pajamas, but with a look that said she knew I'd been thinking too much. I showed her the article. Said nothing. She looked at the screen. Then at me. I thought it was over, she said, almost too quiet. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because it didn't change anything. I tried to fight back. I thought maybe if I did, it would make what happened smaller. But it didn't. It just dragged it out. The case fell apart. He had people, lawyers, denials. And I got tired. She poured coffee, hands shaking. It wasn't just about Tom, she continued. It was about who I was back then. I was so eager to feel wanted I didn't care where the affection came from. And when things got dark, I didn't run, not fast enough. I listened. And for once, I didn't try to fix it. I just stood with her in the wreckage. And suddenly, $10,000 didn't feel like an apology anymore. It felt like insurance. A payment to keep things quiet in case ghosts started talking again. I stared at the photo again, grainy. Yes, but real. Too real to ignore. So I did the only thing that made sense. I forwarded it to Greg. He used to work surveillance with me, private security, before I got out. He still had contacts. Still knew how to move in shadows without leaving a trace. Do I take this to the cops? I asked in the message. Or is this bigger? He replied 2 minutes later. You could. But if this guy's still moving around with a fake death on his record, you won't get far before he disappears again. Let me look first. I didn't love it. But he was right. If we tipped our hand too early, we'd lose him. I showed the text to Claire. We should go to the police, she said. Her voice was tight. This isn't just drama anymore. I nodded. Soon. But not yet. Let me track him first. Just enough to know what we're dealing with. Then we go legal. Out to the lake where Dad used to take us when things got messy at home. No cell service. Just pine trees, cracked docks, and that cold silence only water can hold. I found Tom's car there. Empty. Windows down. And a note under the windshield wiper with 2 words. Stay out. But it was too late for that. Because I'd already stepped in it. Whatever this was, whatever web Tom had spun between Claire, Lewis, and me, it was still moving. Still hungry. And I had a feeling my brother wasn't done lying yet. I sat in my truck by the lake for nearly an hour, staring at that note. Stay out, like it might rewrite itself if I blinked hard enough. Tom's handwriting was unmistakable. Slanted, fast, like he was always in a hurry even when he wasn't. The words weren't a warning. They were a command. But here's the thing about my brother. He only told you to stay out when what he really meant was I'm already in deep. I called him again. Nothing. Then I did the thing I hadn't done in years. I went to our mother's house. She lived alone now, in that little craftsman on Rosewood. The house where Tom and I grew up, one of us always trying to impress her, the other always trying to escape. She opened the door still wearing her gardening gloves, dirt under her fingernails, a look on her face like she knew why I was there before I said a word. It's about Tom, isn't it? She said. I nodded. She sighed, took off the gloves. Come in. The house hadn't changed. Same carpet. Same faint smell of lavender and old wood. Same photos on the mantel, except now, they felt like fossils. Tom in his graduation cap. Me in a suit at 22, trying to look like someone who had a plan. We sat in the living room. I told her everything. Claire, the money, Lewis, the photo from Vegas, the note on the windshield. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back and stared at the ceiling like it might lower the answer down to her. He came by last week, she said finally. Late. After dark. Looked like hell. What did he say? Not much. Just that he might need a favor. That if someone came asking questions, I should send them your way. I blinked. He said that. She nodded. Told me you were the only one who could tie it up without getting cut. I didn't know what that meant. Still don't. My jaw tightened. Did he say where he was going? She shook her head. Just kissed me on the cheek and said he'd see me when it was done. I drove back home on autopilot. Every word, every glance, every shadow suddenly felt like a message. My brother wasn't just hiding. He was setting up the board. And somehow, I was the piece he expected to move last. When I got in, Claire was waiting at the kitchen table. Her laptop open, a manila folder next to her. I went through the old case files, she said. The civil suit. The harassment stuff. My stomach twisted the second I saw it. A photo of Claire, taken from across the street. No message. No signature. Just surveillance. You got this 6 weeks ago? She nodded. And you didn't go to the police? I did, she said. I filed a report. But they said unless I could prove who sent it, there wasn't much they could do. I didn't want to drag you into another dead end. Claire, I thought maybe it was some leftover fear in my own head. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, I started looking over my shoulder again. I started sleeping with the light on. She looked away. I didn't want you to see me like that again. Not when we were trying to move forward. You should have told me, I said, softer now. I know. But they were out now, hanging in the room like smoke. I didn't ask for any of this, she said quietly. I didn't ask for your brother to reappear. I didn't ask for the past to come clawing back. I just wanted to build something new. I sat across from her. Then why does it feel like we're both standing in someone else's ruins? She looked at me, eyes tired, voice steady. Because we are. That night, I didn't sleep again. Instead, I called an old friend, someone I'd covered shifts with back when I worked private security to pay off college loans. His name was Greg, and he owed me a favor. I sent him the photo of Louis from Vegas. An hour later, he called me back. You didn't hear this from me, he said. But your guy checked into a casino under a fake name 2 nights ago. Room's been paid through the weekend. He's on camera. But you didn't get that from me. I hung up and booked a ticket to Vegas. I didn't tell Claire. Didn't tell Mom. Didn't even pack a bag. I just took my keys, my wallet, and the last piece of paper my brother ever wrote me. Because if Louis was alive, and if Tom was hiding, then I wasn't looking for a happy ending anymore. I was looking for the truth. And truth? It doesn't come cheap. It comes blood-wrapped. The Vegas heat hit me like a confession when I stepped off the plane. Thick, sharp, unapologetic. Like the city itself, loud, unbothered by guilt. I didn't bring much. Just my wallet, a burner phone, and a printed photo of the man I thought was long dead. The casino Greg pointed me toward wasn't one of the flashy ones on the strip. This was off Fremont, tucked behind a pawn shop and a diner that hadn't updated its neon sign since the 70s. It smelled like stale air and old secrets. Perfect place to disappear. I didn't ask for Louis at the desk. Just walked the halls until I found the room number Greg gave me. 326. I stood outside for a long minute, listening. Nothing. No voices. No TV. Just the low hum of electricity behind cheap drywall. Then I knocked. Once. Twice. A lock clicked. The door opened 2 inches. And there he was. Older, leaner. Hair gone gray, jaw still sharp. Same dead eyes. You look just like your brother, he said. I didn't speak. He opened the door wider. Might as well come in. The room was small. Clean. Too clean. A single suitcase by the bed. Ashtray full of half-smoked cigarettes. A legal pad on the desk, blank. I closed the door behind me. What do you want? He asked, like it was a tired question. I want to know why my fiancée got a photo in the mail, I said. And why my brother thinks you're dead. Louis chuckled. Because it's easier that way. Being dead makes you harder to find. I took a step closer. But you're not really hiding, are you? You've left just enough behind, photos, sightings, rumors, like you wanted to be found. Not by Tom. By me. He raised an eyebrow. Why would I want that? Because Tom won't come near you. But he knows I will. Maybe you figured I'd be the one to ask the questions he won't. Louis gave a slow, crooked smile. I forgot how much you think. Louis leaned back in his chair. And why would he want that? I looked him dead in the eyes. Because he knew I'd come looking. He smiled, not kind. The kind of smile that comes before a gunshot in the movies. I always wondered if he had it in him, Louis said. Loyalty. I crossed my arms. You hurt Claire. He didn't deny it. She was just leverage, he said flatly. Back then, Tom ran up a debt, and I needed insurance. She was convenient. I felt something in me snap, low and deep. You stalked her again. You sent her that photo. He shrugged. Old habits. I took a deep breath. Where's Tom? His smile faltered. You really don't know? No. He's gone, Lewis said. Off-grid. Real off. He burned his phone, his credit, his name. Said if I ever came near Claire again, he'd make sure I didn't leave the state alive. I blinked. And you're telling me this why? Because you came, he said. Because you're not him. And I don't owe you a thing. I stared at him. Then tossed the photo of Claire, the one from the envelope, onto the table. You owe her. He looked down. And for the first time, I saw something shift behind his eyes. Not guilt. Just the recognition that he'd been seen. I turned to leave. Tell him I'm done, Lewis said behind me. Tell him we're even. I paused at the door. If I find him, I said, I'll tell him. Back in the car, I sat for a long time before starting the engine. The desert sun was setting, the sky bleeding orange over the horizon. Tom had vanished. Lewis had crawled out of the grave long enough to be seen, then slinked back into the shadows. And me? I was caught between two lives, the one I'd planned, and the one that found me. I drove back to the airport. Red-eye home. Slept like a man who'd survived a car crash and hadn't figured out how to walk again. When I got back, Claire was waiting. Not angry. Not scared. Just quiet. I thought you left, she said. I did, I said. But not forever. I told her everything. Lewis. The room. The lies. The truth. When I finished, she didn't cry. She just said, so what do we do now? And I told her. We start over. From the truth. No ceremony. No white dress. No cake. Just us. Two people sitting in the ruins of what almost was, choosing to build something better. We didn't get married that weekend. But we didn't end either. Because sometimes love isn't the wedding or the vows or the ring. It's the decision, the hard one, to stay, even after the fire. Tom never came back. Not really. But sometimes, I'll get a postcard. No return address. Just two words, scribbled in that slanted handwriting. Still here. And I guess that's the best you can hope for with some people. Not resolution. Not apology. Just proof they're still trying. As for Claire and me, we did get married. Quietly. A year later. No guest list. No band. Just us, a lake, and a vow we wrote ourselves. I know all of you, I said. And I'm still here, she said. And in that quiet moment, under a sky so wide it made the past feel small. We meant it. And we still do.